most of those cypress trees that are down here on this end of the lake are pretty shallow. You know, I mean, they're kind of where you'd expect fish to spawn more so than staging up to pre-spawn. So side imaging, trying to find something out in front of that, if that's some stumps, if that's brush, something that's out there for those fish to set up on is going to be important. But it's not like you're going to be following a contour. It's not even a lake you follow or something like that, where it's like, okay, let me go out here and follow this creek channel, and then I'm going to try to find, you know, find some brush or something along this migration route, because it's all pretty flat. Hey everybody, welcome back to the garage and our second stop for the Bass Pro Tour season on our map study and kind of overview of our stops of the year, going to Santee Cooper, Santee over in South Carolina. For a long time, honestly, when people would ask where's my favorite place to go, I would say Santee, because my first big win that I ever had was on Lake Santee Cooper in an Everstart series. That would have been in 2008. One there in early March, caught a lot of those fish sight fishing. And at that point in time, it was a 4-day cumulative in those Everstarts, and I had 94 pounds for those 4 days. So by far the biggest kind of weights I'd ever caught, the biggest stringers I'd ever caught. First day I had like 27-14. Um, you know, that was far and away the biggest bag I'd ever caught, certainly by myself. Um, the third day I had like 19 and a half. That was the only day I didn't have over 20. So a lot of great memories from Santee Cooper, no doubt about it. And I fished 3 or 4 Everstarts, I think. All of them there, I think all of them in the month of April. So that's the only time I've ever been to Santee Cooper is during the month of April. So again, a place where I have a little bit of knowledge. A lot of it's fairly old, and it's all a little bit later in the year. Very similar, honestly, to kind of the setup for Toledo Bend was. So yeah, let's jump into it. A little bit about Santee. Big body of water, really 2 lakes that are connected by a canal. You've got Lake Marion, which is the larger lake, and Lake Moultrie, which is the smaller lake. I always remember that because they're the opposite. The larger name is on the smaller lake, and the smaller name is on the larger lake. That's how I keep that straight. But again, they are connected by a canal. Um, Most definitely a lowland fishery, absolutely. Very flat, almost even more so of a swamp than a lake on a lot of it. And you certainly see that when you get up on the north end of the upper lake. You get up there above that I-95 bridge, and it is absolutely a swamp, cypress tree forest up there. Um, Truly the only part of it that is very lake-like to me is on the south end of that north lake down there around where takeoff is, and then there's a couple other creek arms that are down there that are very lake-like. You know, they've got coves, they've got pockets, that kind of stuff. Very lake-like on that part of it. Outside of that, it is again all very swampy. A lot of backwaters, just natural, you know, flats and ponds and those type of places where the water goes back into. Given where it's at in the world, to me, the only rock there was put there by people. You've got down on the face of the dam, you've got a lot of rock there, big riprap, and then the canal that connects the 2 lakes, you've got a fair amount of riprap down through there, and then the canal that goes out of that south lake, where a lot of the current goes out, you've got some riprap there, and then down on that lower dam as well, you've got some riprap. Um, that kind of really tells you a little bit about it. One thing quick on history of it for me, that event that I won there in April, I caught most of those fish. Actually, every fish that I weighed in, I caught in the lower lake. But a lot of those fish I actually sight fished. Some of them were spawning that I was just casting to a wacky worm to cypress trees and was catching. But a lot of those fish I did actually catch off the bed, but I caught all those on the lower lake. Both lakes have good populations of fish. I've heard from Andy, you know, that the overall the population isn't quite there like it used to be, the numbers of fish wise, but size is still really good. You see tournaments from the time of year we're going to be there, you know, up through the spawn that, you know, usually takes 30 pounds in a 5-fish stringer to win. What does that look like in every fish counts? I honestly don't know. Because a lot of those tournaments, according to Andy, those are people that are catching 5, 6, 7 fish in a day. They just don't catch anything under 4 pounds, So not getting a ton of bites, but those fish being big. So, 25 pounds, 30 pounds, 35 pounds. It sounds like it's probably going to be a good day. It's not like you're expecting to cull through a bunch of 2 and 3 pounders to get up to that. So that's kind of what this place is looking like. Being the time of the year that we're there, it's going to be interesting because a lot of the cypress trees, especially when you're down here in the main part of the lake and the lower lake, I'm going to say, if the water level's normal, most of the trees on that end of the lake are pretty shallow, like 3 foot or less. There's a few out in that 4 to 5 foot range, but I feel like, from what I can remember, most of those cypress trees that are down here on this end of the lake are are pretty shallow. I mean, they're kind of where you'd expect fish to spawn, more so than staging up to pre-spawn. So I think this is going to be a tournament where we're side imaging, trying to find something out in front of that. If that's some stumps, if that's brush, um, something that's out there for those fish to set up on is going to be important. But it's not like you're going to be following a contour. It's not even a lake you follow or something like that, where it's like, okay, let me go out here and follow this creek channel, and then I'm going to try to find some brush or something along this migration route, because it's all pretty flat. I mean, you're not far from the beach at this place, so it's all very flat. Not a lot of major drops. You can see coming up here on the upper lake, that channel, the river channel does run down here on the south side of it. So that kind of has more steep stuff, and then it's got some pockets and stuff that aren't far off of that. So the places that's got the most contour lines, close together, are pretty limited. But there's some of that down here on that south shore of the upper lake. Something I've talked about before is how generally the north side of the lake is going to be what warms first, due to getting sun, due to getting south wind, those type of things. So I would much rather that channel be on the north bank. It just is what it is, because that's where it's at on this place. So it's going to be on the colder bank, but that's where your deeper water and that kind of stuff is at on here. I do think this is a place where I do think that rock, rock, that man-made rock, possibly around the dam, possibly around a bridge or something. I do think that rock could play a big factor in this. Again, this is not a place and a time of year where I'm expecting to go and catch 20 or 30 scoreable fish. I'm assuming we're going to have a 2 pound minimum here at Santee. Um, Man, 10 scoreable bites in a day is probably going to be pretty good, even if you get on a bite where you're not catching a lot of 5 or 6 pounders. Because if you catch 10, you're going to have caught a few 3 or 4 pounders, 5 pounders probably. It's just, you almost can't help it, because that's what size fish are in here. So I'm excited about this one. It's again a place where I've got some history. I've got some knowledge. I've had a good tournament or two here, but I truly don't have a lot of great ideas going into this one that are like, man, this is how I expect to catch them here. I'm going to have flat sides tied on. I'm definitely going to have OG Slim, tiny, deep tiny. Going to probably have a Shad Rap tied on if it's really cold. If it's a little bit warmer, a spinner bait, a bladed jig, a swim jig, to get up in some of those places where maybe if we've got some warm, stable weather, that there could be some fish not quite spawning yet, but getting up there, looking around, and trying to get warm. That is something that I think if you hit it on the right week, it could be really, really impressive, just at the size of fish, that we're liable to catch, because some of those little backwater ponds and places you could get into might be 5, 6, 7 degrees warmer than it is just right out in front of us. And those fish know those places that warm first and warm really quick like that. You get in those places that are, just a little bit deeper than the areas around them, a little bit cleaner water. You've got some dead vegetation back in there on the bottom. Those are the type of places you can get in and throw a swim jig, or maybe even a buzz bait, if the weather's just right, and catch some really giant ones super early in the year like that. So get back into some of those little ponds and those type of things that are protected, a little bit cleaner, cleaner water that you can get to, that's really, really shallow or something. that's liable to be where some fish will get caught. One thing that I do remember too about this place down here, especially on the upper lake, is that it does have a decent number of boat docks. You know, there's mostly really shallow boat docks, but it does have some boat docks, and those fish, again, you catch, you know, some warm, sunny weather, they're liable to stage up under those real shallow boat docks, and you could definitely get them out from under those. So, Santee, late February, excellent time to catch some big ones. Not necessarily a great time to catch a lot of them, but I think we will. I think we'll have a good time going here. Certainly enjoying getting to go back to a place that, honestly, in some ways, helped save my fishing career, because that year in 2008, we just came off of a tournament at Lewis Smith down in Alabama where I got a check, and this was our next stop, and went to here and was able to pull off that win and won $25,000 in that Everstart, and that kept me going at that point in time, because had we not got a check the week before and here as well, didn't know how we were going to make it much further after that. So definitely a good place, a lot of great memories. Very thankful that Santee Cooper has a place in my history.